Whole nother level, but still keep it ghetto. Whole nother level, but still keep it ghetto. Whole nother level.
Welcome to episode 1 of the Process of Hip Hop podcast. I'm Brian Joseph, writer, blogger at theprocessofhiphop.com. And as always, it's all about the process. In today's interview segment, I'll talk to Erv Pope. Erv is a Los Angeles producer and is the founder and owner of the Furnace Music Group. Erv's career spans more than 25 years. During his career, he has worked with musical legends such as Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, hip-hop icons like Jay-Z, Kanye, Diddy, and is the musical director for rapper The Game. So let's get into the main segment. I'd like to welcome to the Process of Hip Hop podcast, Erv Pope. What's going on, my G?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me, brother.
Thank you so much for being on the show, man, and just wanted to having a chance to chop it up with you. So I wanted to start with your background, man. I mean, again, you're a producer, you're an artist, composer, but tell me about how did you get to that point? How your background, and specifically how you got interested, or when you got interested, so to speak, in hip hop.
Man, it's an extensive story, like you said, man. I grew up in a musical family. Not too many piano players per se, but my whole family has rich history in music and singing and gospel. And we come from Louisiana, man. And my pastor, which is my uncle, which is pretty much my dad, bought a piano, an upright piano, and put it into our project unit, in hopes that one of me or my siblings would pick up a genuine interest and, start messing around on it. My sister tried it, which is older. My other sister tried it. She's older. A brother tried it. And when I got a chance to sit down at the piano, man, that was it. I was able to hear stuff and just pick up stuff and mimic and play by ear. And he saw that gift in me. And he personally not only bought us a piano, but he put me through music school, private lessons. I took private lessons for 3 years. After that, I took organ lessons for 1 year. And for that, I'm still playing. I'm his church musician for over 36, 37 years, man. So I'm still there. He's retiring this year, but I made a vow to him that as long as he was the pastor, that he would never have a musician problem. So he saw the gift in me, and he saw it before I saw it, I could say, you know what I mean? And from picking up piano and playing for choirs, I had no idea that I was developing just an overall ear for music and harmonies and parts. And so when I grew to be about 16 years old, I had a cousin who was playing at the same church also, and he took me to his house where he had a home studio, and I saw reel-to-reels, and I saw keyboards, and I saw just all these a plethora of instruments. And from that day, man, I had the bug. I wanted to produce. Prior to that, I wanted to be an architect because I can draw really well as well. And I found out you had to know a high degree of math, and you know what I'm saying? Math was not my strong point at all. So music was. I fell back on music, man, and I've been going ever since.
First moment where you kind of the tipping point where you knew this was going to be something that I was going to be able to pursue in the industry. Like, what was that one moment, if you could recall?
The one moment was when I was fortunate enough to acquire an MPC, a Kai MPC drum machine. Like, I felt like if I can save up enough money, because that was almost like buying a car back then. Being, I guess, around 18, 19 years old, I felt like, man, if I was able to get a MPC, I would rule the I would rule the industry. And once I did do odd jobs and play it hours and hours and hours at the church, I saved up, man, and I got that MPC. And then ever since then, it was, okay, let me acquire another piece of equipment. Okay, this requires this. This requires speakers. Now this requires a mixer. And so I just developed a thirst, man. And like I say, I would have to attribute that to that moment once I was able to get an MPC. I think it was an MPC. What was my first one? I think my first one was a 3000. MPC 3000, man. I felt like I was Timberland or actually back then Teddy Riley or Dr. Dre.
Yeah.
So
you
know what I mean? That had to be the defining moment.
Mm-hmm. Now you have extensive credits that I kind of alluded to earlier, but tell me about your first project.
Okay.
What was that experience like?
Man, my very first project was just confirmation. It was a rapper signed to Rap-A-Lot Records out of Houston. His name was Duracell. But he sounded a lot like Ice Cube. And I was able to get 3 songs on his album. And I think that was in 1999, I believe. But to get 3 songs and to literally get them done professionally and learning how to track them out, you know what I mean? Back then, it was just, for most, it was a hobby. But I was fortunate enough, like I said, to come up under my cousin, Andre Egan's, who first introduced me to the studio and me learning how to separate tracks. And once I got those placements, shortly after, my second was one of the most notable placements, which was Snoop Dogg and his Doghouse All Stars album. And prior to that, I was chasing artists, man. I produce, man. Let me play you something. And you know the whole chase, man. And it's not until you have a notable placement or something that they stopped and even listened to me. What? Wait, you produced for Snoop? And then from then it just became a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. In terms of production, you got your equipment, you started to get your resume. What was that process of really mastering though that craft? Because I mean, again, you're not just a producer, you're a composer. So tell me about that process of moving from I'm producing music to I'm actually performing music to I'm actually writing music. I mean, that again, you are multifaceted. So was that from the church, or how did that foundation start?
All I can say is, man, it has to come from God. You know what I mean? Because if I had to explain to you how I do what I do, even how I play a song, I can't do it. It's honestly, it's a gift. And fortunately, I've been able to use my gifts and my God-given talent to navigate through every single part of the industry that I've come across, from scoring to actually writing to vocal composing and everything, man. Every single accomplishment I've accomplished, it's come from a gift. I didn't study it in school. I picked it. I tried to in college. I tried to take just a beginner's piano course, and I failed because I was so used to playing how I play. It was unorthodox. And I had learned this way through my adolescent years, and it, you know what I mean? It wasn't easy to unlearn that and learn the quote unquote correct way.
What is it about the hip hop industry that you think that a lot of people don't have formal training, but they are very talented and they're able to come up with amazing sound, amazing production? What do you think is it? And it may not just be just the hip hop industry, but I mean, for the sake of our conversation, what is it about that you don't have to be formally trained in order to make it?
Because, man, you know, like I know, we're creative, bro. It's art. So we can make something out of nothing. Imagine how the pioneers took a record and just started scratching it, and that created a thing. And how you can mix samples with other samples, and you don't have to. There was no school for that. We have an ability to create something from nothing. Our culture, man, we didn't have nothing, so we created something from nothing, and that carried on into music.
What was it like working with one of the industry's most successful icons?
I'm gonna tell you what a crazy story, bro, and I can say I stumbled upon that, but you know, I mean, my path was directed. I'm on my way. I think I was on my way on a date or something, and then I got a call from A&R from Dr. Dre's label, Aftermath. His name is Angelo Sanders. At this time, I was doing sessions for Aftermath, just piano, keyboard stuff. And he called me this day, and I'm on my way on a date, on my way to pick my date up, and I look at the phone like, oh man, it's Angelo. He's gonna want me to do a session. You know what I mean? So I reluctantly I answered the phone. He's like, look, man, I got this producer out here from out of town, man. He got keys. Can you just go by there, man, and play on something? So I'm like, all right, I'll go by there. And long story short, I go by there, and it's an unknown producer by the name of Kanye West. And I walk in the session, and like I tell you, I didn't want to be there in the first place. So I walk in the session. He's on the phone. So he's on the phone a minute. I'm like, all right, man, I'm going to go upstairs to the lounge. I'm going to shoot pool. So he came up there and got me like, look, man, I had the song. What do you hear on this? So I play it. He play it, and immediately I just hear it, and I add a bass line to it, and then he gets back on the phone. So I'm like, man, I'll go back upstairs. I shoot more pool, and then he's like, hey, yeah, man, I'm not finished with you. What else you hear on this? So I hear string line, I hear piano line, and just from that session alone, that became Dream on the Blueprint 2. I think it's 2.0. That's that very first session of me working with Kanye. I did that song, and I did Never Let Me Down on the College Dropout album. So,
and sometimes people don't always realize like what exactly goes in. I mean, you have done a complete soundtrack, or like, but what exactly goes into doing an album? You know, it is talk to me about the collaborative effort, because I think many times people hear producer and they think that that's just one person doing everything, but what does a producer do on an album such as the Blueprint, or again any of the albums that you worked on? What is that person's role and responsibility?
Man, that to me, a producer is someone who his job is to create something that's well-rounded, whatever that takes. Sometimes it's adding sometimes producing is taking stuff away. Sometimes is understanding the art and delivering. You're responsible for delivering the best performance and not letting the music overshadow the artist, and complementing each other. Or having the ability in the sense to know when to bring somebody else in to better it. It's not a selfish job at all. A lot of times I hire other musicians to play stuff that I can play, but I want a different interpretation, and I want to bring in fresh ideas. So it's kind of a hard question, because you're in a sense composing. So you have to know when to add something and when to take something away, or when something abstract will lend to something that's average. You know what I mean? So it varies.
You've done some extensive work with the game. What's it like working with the game?
The game, man. The game it's a little different because we've created a friendship. I've heard several people have different things to say about Game, but like work wise, I've never had an issue. I met Game actually through a Kanye session from working on his very first album, which was the documentary. I was working with Kanye and ended up playing strings on Dreams, which is one of Game's notable songs from the documentary. And from that one session, I pulled Game to the side and was like, "Hey man, I don't only play keys, I produce," and I slid him a CD in hopes of getting some on that album. And we just stayed in touch. And then from that one session, the next album, which was Doctor's Advocate, I was able to land the very first track on there, Looking at You. And from that, I stayed in touch and ended up co-executive producing his very next album, the LAX album. And then being responsible, the same thing I said as a producer, being responsible to executive produce that album, I took on a more active role in every single track and lending towards and sewing them together and adding commercials and adding to other notable producers' production to give it a cohesive sound. So I imagine I'm adding some stuff to some of the top producers' records after they submitted them. You know what I mean? That I took that responsibility very serious, and I felt like I was very fortunate to even be trusted to add some stuff to some of, like, from Irv Gotti to a bunch of very, I'm not gonna name all the producers, but very notable producers in the game, and to be able to touch their production in hopes of creating a well-balanced body of work. So, and then from that, after his Red album, I kind of decided I wanted to go another direction, and I wanted to produce for my own artists and put somebody else on and cultivate something that hadn't been done. And even to get a call back from him several years later, wanted me to be over his band, you know what I mean, to tour with him. So we have an extent, like I've been actually doing stuff with Game since his very first album. And I have nothing but great things to say and great experiences. I've went around the world with this dude for probably we're leaving actually again at the end of January, and this will be my 4th world tour with him. So so great guy, man.
You started your career in the 90s, really that, arguably the golden age of hip hop.
Yeah.
And now a career that spans over 20 years. How has the industry changed, in your opinion, over the last 2 decades?
Okay. The music, the industry has changed drastically from production to lyrical content, to the business changing. I mean, it's changed completely all the way around. Lyrically, the lyrics are dumbed down. There's not much variety in styles anymore. Production-wise, there's not that many choices that you can go to for sound. Everybody is trying to sound the same. And then I would also blame that on the execs, because these young producers, if you're only paying for one type of sound, it forces the young producer to only make that type of sound. And you stifle your creativity by only going down one lane. Imagine being on the highway and it's just merging into one lane. That's literally what we have in the music industry. And I choose myself to get off the freeway. I'm off the freeway. I'm like, I'll take the street. The street offers, like, I can offer a different sound. I have to be cognizant of what's selling and what's popular, but I take that and I add my own element to it, and being unique and being just being myself and creating a sound per se, and trying to be viable in this situation. I understand that the business part of it. I understand that the things that are against us with with everybody forcing one sound. Like radio today sounds like one long song. You can't tell who the producers are. So I want to infuse what I do into what's popular now.
Hip hop was founded on using samples, R&B, soul, classical music, jazz, rock, you name it. Will the industry ever go back to that era?
I think that the business part of the industry won't allow it to go back to that point because now you have a lot more situations to where copyright infringement is disallowing you to be creative in that sense. If you sound remotely close to something, some of these people will some of these owners of the body of work will shut you down. It's not really like I was never a big sampler because I understood early that I can't own it. I can actually work on something and you can tell me, nah, you can't use it. Or you can say you can use it, but I need all of your revenue for you using it. I need all of your publishing for you using it. For the artists that feel that way, I can't be mad at that either because they created something, and for them to create something and how hard it was to break something and become popular, I'm gonna allow you to just take it and make more money and not really add substance to my body of work and actually demeans or make it represent something that I'm against. I don't see it going back to that. Only because it ain't really lucrative. That's one aspect of it, and that's why I try to be creative enough to where I made something feel like a sample, but it's actually something that I created. So fortunately, I'm able to hear something and make you believe where you get that sample from. And it's like I played everything, or I had somebody come in and I have somebody come play a violin or something. So automatically you're gonna think, no way he got somebody to come and play a violin on that. So that has to be a sample. What is that? So there's innovative ways to get that sound or create a different sound. Like I use trap drums and I add beautiful music on top of it. Not too many people are doing that. And those are the ones that's going to stand out because it's not being offered. But at the same time, consumers are starving for something different. There's just not a lot of people bold enough to get off that beaten path and create it.
Now, you talked about you're going to be going on world tour with the game at the end of January. What are some other projects? Because I know you're busy, brother. So what are some other projects that you're working on?
Man, I have an artist named Maze 301, Maez 301, who I found in Maryland. I flew him to California. I did a deal with him. Super talented kid. And I signed a deal with Strange Music, the #1 independent rap label in the world. So we have an active deal. He just dropped a project, a self-titled project, November the 8th. With Strange, we have a system to where we drop an EP every 8 weeks, 4-song EP every 8 weeks. And when we reach the 4th EP, we combine that, add more music to that, and we create an album and we put it out. And now, at the end of January, the first EP of the next album is due. So it's constant work. I produce every single track on it. It's 20 tracks, 21 if you bought the physical. And that keeps me busy. And that's me breaking an artist. And that's me introducing something. Like, so what I'm mentioning in this interview about getting off the beaten path and creating something, that's what I'm talking about. To hear somebody and to say, you know what, because I've heard people call me a super producer. I don't feel like you're a super producer unless you break an artist, unless you introduce something that hasn't been introduced. So that keeps me busy. And then from his success, I'm getting more calls for production. And eventually he's gonna tour because I'm adding a lot more live instruments into his production. So I'm gonna be touring for him. I'm sure by the end of the year, 2020. I have a jazz album, my fourth jazz album. I need to complete it. I'm 90% done with it. I just need to pick the songs, man, and master them and put them out. That's something else. More television work, more film work. I'm busy, you know what I mean? From that alone, and playing clubs in LA, because for me, music doesn't get old because I do so many different things. When I'm tired of jazz, it's time to go play at church. When I'm tired of that, well, I don't want to say when I'm tired of that, but when I'm not doing that, I'm in the studio, or I'm working on a film, or I'm just creating. So there's not a lack of work. So I'll be busy for a while, man.
Well, what's the best way, people that are listening to this, for them to stay in touch and contact with what you're doing? What's the best way?
The best way, if you follow me on social media, you're gonna see every facet of my life. I show everything. If I'm at church, you're gonna see me at church. If I'm in the studio, you're gonna see me in the studio. If I'm making a beat, you're gonna see that. If I'm hanging out, I'm clowning with my friends, you're gonna see that. So if you follow me on Instagram, I would say Instagram is probably the social media network that I'm on the most, which is my site is at EP Music. I have a band page. My band page is at The Furnace Band. The name of my company is The Furnace. And Facebook, if you want to stay in touch with me and what I'm doing. And I just started a podcast, man, and it just started with me and some of my friends. Three of my friends that I grew up with, that we've been friends for over 35 years, and we started a podcast to fill a void for some of these young guys out here who have no role models and have no way of getting great life lessons. We give back. We're talking about issues. We're talking about dating. We're talking about police brutality. We're talking about social issues and stuff we've avoided in efforts for not just young men, but for mothers, single parents, to kind of get a male's perspective on what's going on today, from music to school to whatever could be helpful to a young man that has no positive role model. So a lot is going on in 2020. This podcast came out the blue. It's very well received, and I'm excited, man. I'm just excited for what God has for me in 2020, and who knows, man? Sky's the limit. The only thing I can say is work every day, work on something every single day, and surely you're gonna get good at something, and something is going to stick. But if you don't take this seriously, it's enough people out there who will. So and the slots are limited.
Thank you so much, Irv. Best of luck to you in 2020, years beyond, brother.
Man, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for sharing your platform with me, man. I don't take this lightly. If I'm able to reach 100 more people that would never be privy to who I am or what I have to offer to this world, man, I don't take that lightly, man. Thank you, and much success to you and your platform.
We hope you enjoyed episode 1 of the Process of Hip Hop podcast. Join us next week for episode 2. The Process of Hip Hop is produced and edited by me, Brian Joseph. Executive produced by Dale Harewood. Music by DJ Big Mike of Realside Records at realsiderecords.com.